Imagine if, instead of disappearing to a galaxy far, far away, Grand Admiral Thrawn had instead won the battle and destroyed the rebel cell known as the Ghost Crew. How would him still being around alter the fate of the galaxy going forward? Well, first of all, the Galactic Empire would be a whole lot stronger. Thrawn had a brilliant mind, and he was a tactician like no other. He studied his enemies in order to read them and anticipate their next move. It was something that made him stand out from other Imperials, who would rather just try to smash their enemies into oblivion like some kind of blunt-forced object. But Thrawn was precise and calculating, making him a much more dangerous and effective enemy against the rebels. With Thrawn still being around, the first big difference would have been at the Battle of Scarif. Once news broke of the rebel incursion on the Imperial Vault, Grand Moff Tarkin would not only call for Darth Vader to join the fight, but also Thrawn and his fleet. The Death Star would deal with obliterating the rebels on the ground, and Thrawn and Vader could annihilate the fleet. Even if the Death Star plans did make it out on one of the ships, the rebel fleet would have been torn apart even further by Thrawn and his Star Destroyers. Of course, Thrawn would be calculating the odds of the rebels actually finding a flaw in the design of the Death Star, and he would fully understand the gravity of the situation. Tarkin and many of the Imperial officers didn't believe the rebels stood a chance against the moon-sized battle station, but Thrawn was insistent that neither he nor Tarkin would stay aboard the Death Star when the rebels started to attack it. Erring on the side of caution, Tarkin allowed Thrawn to convince him to leave, something which he was extremely grateful for when the rebels did actually destroy the space station. Following this humiliating defeat, the Emperor would chastise Vader and Tarkin, both of whom were put in charge of the Death Star. While Tarkin would not be demoted, Palpatine chose to allow Thrawn more of an active role and to take over some key duties of Tarkin. He was not driven by ego or ideology for anything, something which the Emperor truly appreciated. It's what made Thrawn an effective leader. In the years following the Battle of Yavin, the Emperor would let Thrawn take full control of the Imperial Navy while he placed Tarkin in charge of the second Death Star. In all fairness to Tarkin, he learned from his mistakes with the first space station and made sure that the second Death Star was designed with no such flaws. One idea that Thrawn sometimes brought up with the Emperor was allowing the Chiss Ascendancy to come out of hiding in the unknown regions. The Chiss Ascendancy was a powerful and mysterious political and military entity located in the most secretive of regions of the galaxy. It was home of the Chiss species, of which Thrawn was the most prominent and powerful. Thrawn told Palpatine that they could help bolster the Empire and be a great asset. However, the Emperor, fearing the Chiss would take over, repeatedly overruled Thrawn, telling him that he would allow them to exist in the unknown regions, but if they arrived in more civilized parts of space, the Empire would see them as an enemy on the same level as the Rebellion and destroy them. Thrawn was often frustrated with this illogical decision, though he kept his thoughts to himself and kept himself busy running the Imperial Navy. Despite it being abundantly clear to Palpatine that Thrawn wanted to make inroads for the Chiss Ascendancy, he was still needed and valued for his brilliant strategic mind. As long as he remained loyal to the Empire, Palpatine was not overly bothered by Thrawn's outside ambitions. One of Thrawn's more bold and visionary plans was to leak the location of the second Death Star to the rebels. He told the Emperor that it would draw out a large portion of the rebellion, at which point they could be trapped and destroyed. It was a good strategic plan with solid reasoning, and one that the Emperor almost immediately signed off on. This was what he loved about Thrawn, his ability to come up with plans that were not even considered by people such as Tarkin and Vader. When the time came, the plan went off without a hitch. The rebels attacked, and Thrawn and a massive portion of the Imperial Navy was waiting for them. They were caught between the shielded Death Star and a massive and unforgiving fleet that seemed to anticipate their improvised escape plans before they even made them. Palpatine and Tarkin watched this all unfold from the throne room of the Death Star. Like in the official timeline, Vader brought Luke Skywalker to the Emperor, and things would play out very much as they did in the movie, apart from Tarkin being there, silently watching on from the Emperor's side. Vader would be beaten, Luke would refuse to join the Sith, Palpatine would attack him and ultimately be killed by a redeemed Anakin Skywalker who would soon go on to die from injuries of his own. Luke would make his escape with the body of his father while Tarkin flees to the control room of the Death Star in order to try to take some sort of control in the immediate aftermath of Palpatine and Vader's death. Of course, the shield generator on the moon of Endor would be destroyed, leaving the space station vulnerable. The fighters attacked, flying directly into the superstructure and navigating the passageways all the way to the reactor core, which they managed to destroy, causing a chain reaction throughout the entire battle station. Within moments, the second Death Star erupted into a fireball, and with that, the Emperor, Tarkin, and Darth Vader were all dead. But while several Star Destroyers fled, jumping into hyperspace and escaping to safety, Thrawn remained focused and ordered his fleet to show no mercy to the rebels who were scattered following the blast from the Death Star 2. It was clear that the rebels thought the Empire would give up, but under Thrawn's command, they kept fighting until the rebel fleet was no more. It was retribution for killing the Emperor and leaving the Empire adrift and with no focus. But following the death of their leader, the Empire was at risk of imploding, destroying itself from the inside out. The rebels were chipping away at them, and infighting was causing all kinds of problems as various people vied for power. But it was Thrawn who stepped up. As one of the most senior members of the Empire, he knew he had to do something. Other high-ranking members all agreed that if they wanted to keep control of the galaxy, Thrawn was the guy who they needed to get behind. And so, with the support of more and more Imperials, Thrawn started to reform and reshape the Empire into a dominant force once again. While in the standard timeline, the Empire's last stand was at the massive and climactic Battle of Jakku, no such conflict would happen with Thrawn in command. Instead, he would focus on rebuilding the fleet, centralizing an Imperial government, and getting things back on a stable footing. Even those Imperials who had fled to the unknown regions returned when they found out Thrawn was in charge, and the Empire was rebuilding itself. That means that the First Order never rose, as there was never any need for them. But this was all part of Thrawn's plan. You see, when he leaked the information about the second Death Star to the rebels, Thrawn had calculated that there was a chance that not only would the rebels be able to take down the deflector shield, but also destroy the space station. Now, if the Empire managed to stop this happening, the rebels would be pushed to the brink of extinction, and Thrawn would be given more power than anyone other than Palpatine himself. However, if the rebels succeeded and destroyed the Death Star, then Thrawn would be able to take all of the power. And if he had complete power, well, Thrawn's options were limitless. He had put himself in a position where he couldn't lose. Of course, the rebels weren't gone. In fact, while the Empire had been rebuilding itself, so had the rebellion. But Thrawn had an ace up his sleeve though, Starkiller Base. The Empire had started construction of a weapon so powerful that it could harness the power of a star to devastating effect. It was being built directly into Ilum, a planet filled with rare kyber crystals. Palpatine had ordered the construction not long after transforming the Republic into an empire, but he knew this would be no quick project. It would take multiple decades at best. That's why he ordered the construction of a Death Star instead, so he could still have a planet-destroying weapon at hand. Thrawn's intent was to oversee the final construction of Starkiller Base just in case he ever needed to use it. Thrawn made sure that everything in his new empire ran smoothly and like clockwork. Palpatine had worked out most of the kinks over the years, but Thrawn made sure that the machine received a much-needed oiling. But the main difference was that Thrawn didn't hoard riches in the same way Palpatine did. He would distribute wealth among the Imperial leadership, and that would trickle down to every officer, trooper, and worker in the Empire. Even its citizens would benefit. That meant that in the wake of the dictator-like rule of Palpatine, Thrawn was not only seen as a breath of fresh air, but a savior. Thrawn was more than just a leader of the Empire. He became a cult. His Imperial followers loved him and respected him. He had saved them and given them purpose, and for that they would be forever grateful and blindly loyal. So when the Chiss made their big return to the galaxy and Thrawn allowed them use of every single resource that the Empire had available to them, his Imperial followers blindly accepted it and even celebrated the fact that they were being taken over. He practically handed the Chiss the keys to Starkiller Base, telling them to make it their new homeworld. And bit by bit, the Chiss inserted themselves into everything that the Empire owned until eventually the Empire was no more. It was now the Chiss ascendancy, just as Thrawn had intended from the very beginning. It was logical, it was a strategically smart play, and most importantly, it was all his. So now it's over to you. What do you think would have happened if Grand Admiral Thrawn never disappeared? Be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. If you haven't, please give this video a like and a subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching!